Joining me, Dr. Siobhan Power, archaeologist.
No, geologist.
A geologist,
Geologist.
which is just a whisper around the corner from the home of archaeology,
Well,
maybe.
quite different. It's purely the
Or
rocks.
the science is different.
Yeah. The methods would be similar. Our
Yeah.
understanding of the Earth would be similar, but it's purely the rocks.
So you're working in this part of the world.
I am.
And we talked before
We did.
what you do, and the rocks talk.
They do. They definitely talk. And here in the Mourne-Cooley Gullion region, they have a lot of tales. It's the only place on this island where you can tell the story of the closing of one ocean and the opening of another ocean.
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
Take
it is
a
a big
moment
one.
and explain
yes,
this to us.
So the oceans on the Earth open and close and open and close. It's just the way plates keep moving. The Earth stays the same size, so everything just changes. And remember, the Earth is 4.6 billion, current scientific thinking is the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. Therefore, there's been a lot of movement and a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So oceans open and close. We had an ocean here about 500 million years ago.
And where did it go to? And what was the area it covered?
The current so it's now closed.
Yeah.
As you
And
can
has
guess.
it become Ireland?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's closed, and the suture line, so the point at which it closed, you can pick it out all the way from Aberdeen, Scotland, to Alabama in the United States.
Right across.
So the north.
Big ocean.
It is a big ocean. Here we see it at Clogherhead in County Louth.
Yeah.
So that's the suture here. But just in the lowlands of County Down, County Louth, it's all subduction zone.
Subduction?
Yes, subduction.
That's an interesting word.
It's subduction, yeah, where one plate is pushed beneath another plate.
Yeah.
So you just like in Chile at the moment.
Yeah.
Just like in Japan at the moment.
Yeah.
So you'd have lots of very strong earthquakes,
Yeah.
and therefore tsunami, and you'd have a lot of volcanic activity
But
as well.
in the process of subduction, there could be a geological hiccup, and that would cause all kinds of mayhem.
Well, the very act of subduction, or as we know from the Pacific Rim, the Ring of Fire, that it's volcanic, it's highly seismic, or it's a lot of earthquakes. But that ocean was the iapetus.
I love these words this morning.
Iapetus. Iapetus.
It's a lovely word.
It is.
An iapetus. What's an iapetus?
No, it is. The ocean is named the
Oh,
Iapetus
it was named
Ocean.
yeah.
Well, it wasn't then because nobody
no,
was there.
they didn't have it, but
we've
we call it
we've
the
named it the
Iapetus.
because Iapetus in Greek mythology, Iapetus was the father of Atlantis.
Wow. Well, why wouldn't we call it
So
iapetus?
it is the perfect name
it's
to call it.
It's the perfect name for it.
So we
Yeah.
see that evidence here in the striped rocks. People probably recognise them along the County Down coast, along by Bloody Bridge and
Yes, of
along
course,
striped
yeah.
rocks, and at King John's Castle in Carlingford as well. And then the second ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, we have evidence for that starting.
That's the child of the father.
It is the child of the father. We have evidence of that starting in the Carlingford complex, so the Slieve Foy, that area, the Ring of Gullion, Slieve Gullion and the Ring complex, and of course the Mourne Mountains.
Yeah.
So it's the only place in Ireland we can see evidence for the two. You can see evidence for the closing of the Iapetus Ocean, where I'm from, in County Galway, and Mayo and Donegal and Tyrone, and a little bit up near Fairhead, County Antrim. And you can see evidence for the opening of the Atlantic Ocean, of course, at the Giant's Causeway. So all of the Antrim basalts.
It's wonderful.
But we've got the two here.
Yeah.
So that's special for Mourne-Cooley Gullion.
Yeah.
It's the only place on the island you can
tell
the two stories.
It must hurt you as a person who loves this discipline and this wonderment that the population at large aren't particularly au fait with any of this. They just see stones and rocks and all that. But really there's a geological treasure house that if we knew about it, it would put an awful lot of things into context for us.
It would.
It would stop us sweating the small stuff.
It would. It would realise
with.
when I talk, I say, yeah, plus or minus a million years.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about it.
Let's not worry.
You said hurt. It doesn't hurt me. No, I don't expect people to know about it. But I love to tell people about it. And I hope I tell them in a way that's non-technical. And I love then to see people, really, and they're getting so proud of their area.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot here in the landscape that people should be proud of. And they are, but they should be. The Ring of Gullion. It was the first ever ring dike described in scientific literature.
Goodness
I mean,
gracious.
that's its contribution to science, and that's a big contribution to science.
And what, in a sentence, what is that significance to say? The Ring of Gullion, in a sentence, how did that contribute to science?
Well, it was the first ever one described.
And why is it important that it exists?
It gives us an understanding of ring dikes. We now recognise them from in Western Scotland. They're recognised all over the world.
And what is a ring dike?
So the ring dike is where you had the hard rock, solid rock at the top, or naturally the ground, as people call it, and then we'd have had melted rock underneath.
Yes.
The melted rock drained away, and so you had a cavity, and you can't have a cavity in the earth, and it collapsed in a circular fashion. When we do this for children in schools, the way we do it is inflate a balloon.
Yes.
Hold it, so don't put a knot in it, hold it in a basin or something. Fill the whole lot up with flour. The basin.
Yes.
So the balloon is now fully covered.
Yes.
So the balloon is the magma, the melted rock. The
Take
flour,
your hand away.
Slowly.
Yeah.
And deflate the balloon, and it will collapse in a circular fashion, which is exactly what the ring dike is.
The Earth, you so correctly tell us about the volatility of the Earth.
Yes.
And I was listening to the World Service the other night, and they were talking about an island off the coast of Australia, Sandy Island.
Right.
That it had disappeared completely off the map of the world, and it had gone hundreds of years ago. It had disappeared.
Yeah.
But Google still had it there because Google uses a number of techniques to chart these things, but not the satellite. So when it was looked into and investigated, they said, Sandy Island, where is it? It should be there. And they discovered it had long since gone, and it was still being represented on maps of the world, you know. When did your interest in stones begin?
When I was probably 3 or 4.
Now, how did that manifest?
I just loved the outdoors, and I used to, I grew up in the countryside, and I used to make my uncle, who was a farmer, tell me all the stories about this, that and the other. And he did know a lot of this stuff, and he explained various things to me. And he also bought me a globe, so taught me where all the countries were. So I've always been interested in that. Yes. And then I loved science. I loved history first. History was my primary school favourite subject. And then I went to secondary school and fell in love with science. And I knew I just wanted to do something with science. And when I was applying for university, I thought, oh, that sounds fun. Because there are a lot of field trips and you get to travel a lot. And geology is a subject you can travel the world with.
Are you sought after by the petrochemical companies?
I could be, if I wanted to be. I've chosen not to go down, not for any moral reason or anything,
of course.
but I've chosen, when you start off first in that type of job, it's like 3 months on a rig, or maybe shorter than that, but it's working on rigs, working off rigs. It's kind of a hard enough life. It's not exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be out and with the people, out and about. So I worked as an academic geologist for a long time in universities, and I've carried out a lot of field work in Greenland. Greenland is where I go as much as I love the Arctic.
Well, I can imagine that.
Yes.
There's a purity and
there is
an honesty about it. Really.
There is.
There's no nonsense.
So I spent 6.5 weeks at 78 degrees north 10 years ago, and that was just sand and rock and ice and sea, and it was just bliss.
More immediately accessible to you is Iceland.
It is. It is.
Have you been there?
I have. I have been to Iceland.
It's an extraordinary country.
It is.
Yeah.
Smells a bit of rotten eggs.
It would do, yeah.
Because of the volcanics.
Yeah, of course.
No, it is very interesting, and that's exactly what this place would have been like. So as the ocean, the Atlantic is getting wider and wider, and it's forming Iceland, but that's more like what here would have been like.
Okay, where are you in fracking?
Well, I understand the science of fracking. I understand how it works.
Basically, you put a hose down the hole and fill the cracks under the earth with a substance that expands and fractures the fissures that already exist.
Yes.
And that fracturing releases
The petrochemicals,
the petrochemicals,
oils, yes.
and the oils.
Yes.
Is that it?
That's it.
What's wrong with that?
Well,
I'm trying to figure this
okay,
out.
there's a few things.
Yeah.
The science works.
Yeah.
And if we continue to need oil for our cars, because we're all big into driving, and we're going to need oils. Of course, the other method is to do other forms of energy.
Of course. We have 2 decades to do that.
We have a great big Atlantic Ocean where the waves are coming in all the time, and we're not doing a thing about it.
We haven't opened our eyes.
Yeah. So there's all those.
Yeah.
But to get back to fracking, where are the problems? Well, I suppose it's human error.
Yeah.
So you've to have, as you called it, the hose,
Yeah.
but that goes down through the water table. So if it's not perfectly sealed,
Yes.
if it is perfectly sealed, that's great. If it's not perfectly sealed, you could have nasties going into the water table.
Why is it the Gulf of Mexico comes to mind, and that great deep well that fractured?
Yes.
There was an horrendous bit of business went on there for a long time.
So while science works on paper and diagrams and in a lab, when you add humans in, it can sometimes go a little bit wrong. The other thing is the fluids that you put down.
Yeah.
In some countries, or a lot of countries, you have to declare what's in the mix. And so there'd be regulations on that. In some countries in the world, you don't declare, so we don't know what's happening. Yeah.
And are we going down deep enough into the mantle? Do we go into the mantle?
No, you don't go into the mantle.
No, we're just up at the crust.
It's still in the crust, but the crust is very, very thick.
Yeah.
So we're way.
Well, there's no movement in the crust. Your tectonic plates are down in the mantle.
No, the plates are
within the crust.
Yeah. Yes.
Ah, I see.
Yes, no, they are still in the crust. But of course, you'd have portions of passive plate. Like here, we're on a passive plate. There's nothing really happening. Occasionally, we get tiny little earthquakes from maybe readjustment of the North Sea or something like that.
There we are.
Little tiny earthquakes.
You could almost be fond of them.
Huh?
You could almost be fond of them.
Well, I'd love them. You don't go into the mantle, but the crust is very, very thick. We go way below the water table. Yeah. So when I say we, I've never been involved, so I shouldn't say we. I'm saying we as geologists, but I've never been involved.
And listen to me, we've been half an hour talking, and we haven't
talked about myths
we haven't talked about the Vikings, but we're way beyond all of that.
We're beyond Vikings,
which is great.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to go now. Andrew is the man who pulls all the switch. I want to thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you very much.
You've been wonderful, and good luck in your work.
Thank you very much.
It's always a joy to speak with you.
Thank you.
Don't leave it as long till the next time.
Right, okay.
That would be very, very helpful.
Okay.
That's Siobhan Power. And Andrew, we'll go to the big lunch and Grania. Just a little while back, Grania McCluskey came in to me to tell me about this thing, the big lunch, which is a child of the Eden project down in the south.
In Cornwall.
In Cornwall.
Yes.
And the idea of the big lunch is that people will come together in their various communities. They'll have lunch together in the street or the church hall or wherever else, or down by the riverside, whatever, and that they'll grow to know each other a wee bit better.
Sounds nice.
And community will start to grow out of it. So we have that there, and Andrew's going to play that for us now. Pray silence for the big lunch, and we have there Grania McCluskey.